Hello and welcome to this video tutorial from BlenderCookie.com. My name is Jonathan Williamson, and today we're going to do something that's pretty dear to my heart, and that is to actually recreate both, today just the modeling stage, but to recreate a realistic apple, an apple as in the fruit. Having grown up on an apple orchard, and in fact actually being named after an apple, I have a bit of a fancy for them. And so we're going to go ahead and do that today. And like I said, today is just going to be the modeling portion of it, but we'll go ahead and follow it up with both texturing, lighting, and rendering, or actually, yeah, it's two parts in the following weeks and or days. So stay tuned for those. And we want to go ahead and begin by first loading in the reference images. So let me just go ahead and change this over to a UV image editor first, just so we can see what we're doing. And we'll just go to Open. And under my references folder, I've collected several different samples here of 3 different ones from a series, and then 2 more here, which are both there's the original one, which is very large, that we'll use to be pulling out some details for textures and whatnot, and then we have a smaller version of that. And all of these are licensed as Creative Commons, and you'll find within the source files included a text description with the attribution links for each one of these. For the modeling stage, I want to go ahead and just choose this one right here, as it shows a very nice profile of the apple, allows us to see a little bit of the shape, but then we'll also be looking at these 2 as well. So let's first just double click on this one to drag it in, and you'll notice we've got a pretty good size on these, very nice quality images. This one was actually featured as one of the featured files on commons.wikimedia. Going back over to the 3D view, we're going to go ahead and load this in as a background image. So let's just hit in to bring up our properties panel. Scroll down to the background images tab, and we'll just go ahead and toggle some of these down to get them out of the way. Toggle this down, click add image, then toggle on this arrow, and then since we've already opened the image, we can just choose the browse ID data and choose redapple.jpg. So now we have this, and that's pretty much all we need. Now note that we're not going to be modeling in this rotation. We're just going to actually move this off to the side so that we can just see it as a visual reference. First off, let's go ahead and turn the size down. We'll just hold down Shift while scrolling this down, and we'll leave it about the same size as the cube, right about there. We'll just make this easy, 1.5. Okay, and let's go ahead and move it over along the x-axis so that we show it to the side of it right there. So we're just going to use this as a visual reference with which to compare to. So on our default mesh here, let's go ahead and we'll hit X and delete. And I'm going to go into top view, hit Shift A, add mesh and circle. On this circle, let's go ahead and change the vertices over to 12. And then we'll hit tab to go into edit mode, and we want to rotate it 15 degrees. And we can do that by just hitting R and then 15 on the number pad and hit enter. And what this does is then gives us a vertex that lines up with the y-axis and the x-axis, because what we're going to do now is go ahead and delete everything but our one side. Well, actually, no, we're not going to do that just yet. What I was getting at is we're going to add in a mirror modifier on this that will enable us to work with just a quarter of the apple and then replicate that across all 4 sides. But what we want to do first to make it a little easier is to go ahead and extrude out the very basic shape. Because once we add the mirror modifier, it'll no longer, when we extrude and scale, it'll scale towards the center right about here rather than the center of the cursor, which just happens to be at the cursor right now. You know, the center of the circle is right here in the center. So we want to go and extrude it first. So I'm going to go ahead and scale this way down to be about the size of the bottom stem area, which let's just go ahead and we might as well load in multiple images and just basically center them around our apple. So let's go ahead and do that. We can just add image, open another one, we'll choose references, and this time I'm going to go ahead and choose this one here, and we'll take it down so that the size is pretty much identical to be right about there, so just at 1, and we'll take it up along the y-axis to about there, and let's go ahead and add in one more. And on this one, we're going to choose this one here so it shows the bottom of the apple, and we'll take this size down to 1 as well, and then move it over along the x-axis. There we go. Now on our circle, we can see that this area right in here, the bottom of the stem, which is actually basically the center of the blossom originally, we're going to use this circle, and let's go and E to extrude, scale out a bit, Whoops. I wasn't in edit mode. There we go. Now E to extrude, scale out, and then E to extrude, scale up. And all I'm going to do is basically create the very, very simple form. So first extrude it up again, and then I'll hit Control R, add in 2 loops, scale these way up, scale this one up a lot more, and then we'll go ahead and extrude this up, scale it up, or down, and then extrude this in, scale it in. Let's do the same thing right here. We'll extrude it up, scale it in. So we're extruding with E, select the entire loop by Alt right clicking on it, and then just moving it with G, R, and S for grab, rotate, and scale. Let's go ahead and scale our entire apple up to be about the same size as these other ones. Maybe we'll scale it up along the Z-axis a little bit here, right about like that. Let's make the top a little bit flatter. Select these two, so it's Alt right click, Alt shift right click, select multiples, scale it up, move it up, maybe go ahead and scale these out a little bit. Apples tend to be a little bit larger along the top than the bottom. You know, obviously there's going to be variation in them, and that's actually what we're getting ready to do, is to add in all that variation. But before we do that, let's go and add in a subsurf modifier by going over to the modifiers panel here, choose subdivision surface, select everything, W, and shade smooth. Remember, you can select everything by hitting A, or A toggles deselecting everything and selecting everything. So select everything, deselect everything. Let's go and increase the views to 2 to make it nice and smooth. You can see we're getting this very nasty black lines here, so we'll select everything in edit mode and hit Control N to recalculate the normals, and that will flip that around. And what that does is the normals are the direction that the faces are pointing. So when we recalculate them, we make sure they're all facing out rather than some in. The important part is just that they're all facing the same direction. So now that we have this basic form, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select first 1/2, and I'm going to hit X, and delete vertices. Then I'll select this quarter here, hit X, and delete vertices. Let's go and turn on optimal display on our subdivision surface modifier, and add in a mirror modifier, which we will then move above the subsurf. When in doubt, you want to have the mirror modifier as the first position and the subsurf as the last position, so they're applied to the mesh in that order. Let's go ahead and mirror this across the X and the Y axis. So now we have a full perfect circular apple. Let's go and turn on clipping so that we can't pull them apart from the center like this. So if we turn this on, they're locked to the center axis, which in this case is both the X and the Y axis. And there we go. So now we're ready to go ahead and start adding in a little bit of variation in the form. So first, maybe we'll go ahead, let's go ahead and Control E and slide this loop along. We'll slide this loop along as well. And then let's add in a new loop right here. And we can go and select all 3 of these, hit Alt S, scale them out a little bit, maybe scale this one out a little bit more, which at the same time starts to add in these kind of forms here. But we actually want these to go the other way, because rather than being sharp creases like that, they're more sharp creases going down rather than out. So we'll just take these, take it up, take it out along the X and the Y axis. So we'll hit G and then Shift Z to just pull it out like that. Let's go ahead and take these ones in along the X, in along the Y. And in fact, we can go ahead and just select these 8 and maybe hit W and smooth a few times. Now you'll notice it's pulling away from the axis there, so let's just pull that back into the center. We can go ahead, grab these here, pull them down, take that up to start creating that form in there. We'll maybe take these ones down a little bit more. Maybe hit Alt S to scale them up, and then W and smooth a few times. Let's select all this and we'll hit Control Z or S and then Z to scale them in. And you'll notice that this is pretty symmetrical all around at the moment, but what we'll do when we're all done is we'll go ahead and turn off the mirror modifier such that we can go in and add in some more variation. So let's do the same kind of thing at the top, although first we'll just take a few of these vertices, and I'm actually going to grab this one. Let's hit O to turn on our proportion editing, and what we're going to do is we're going to switch this over to random, and then I'm just going to hit S and scale out, and that will just kind of send all the vertices in different directions to add in some general surface variation. You know, apples are not perfectly round. And we'll turn proportional editing off by hitting O. Let's go ahead and grab this, and we'll maybe just go ahead and pull this one up, pull this up, and this one here. Actually, we'll take that one down, take that down. There we go. And along the stem here, you'll notice it's much more even. It's more of just it goes down to a pit to where it then ends with the stem. So let's select this. We're going to hit W, smooth a couple of times, pull that back to the axis. It seems there's a bug in Blender that with clipping on, it doesn't pull away from the X-axis, but it pulls away from the Y-axis. There we go. Select these. And what I want to do is I'm going to hit Tab to leave edit mode. I'm going to hit Shift S and cursor to selection, to which then will, select it, Shift S, cursor to selected, which will center my cursor right there. And then I want to select this, hit period on my keyboard, which will change this pivot point to the 3D cursor. And now I can hit E to extrude, scale it in, and it will scale towards the cursor, which then, since it goes way too far, I can take it up, hit E, extrude again to scale, or E to extrude, and then S to scale. I can hit S and Shift Z, so it'll only scale in, but still towards the cursor, rather than scaling along the Z axis as well. So Shift Z or Shift X or Y, any one of the axes will exclude that axis from the transformation, allowing you to better constrain things. Personally, I like a little bit more shape to the apple, so I'm going to scale that in a little bit. There we go. Yeah, this is starting to look pretty good. What I want to go ahead and do now is to extrude the stem. So I'm first just going to select this, hit E to extrude, take it straight up, and we'll take it up to maybe right about there. And then what I want to do is I'm going to hit S and Z to scale it to 0 along the Z axis. I'm going to hit period again to scale towards the cursor. I'm going to hit E to extrude, and then S and Shift Z to just scale in to 0. Hit Enter. And then I'll hit W and remove doubles. Actually, no, before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the cursor up here so I don't have to do the Shift Z. So I'm going to position the cursor right about there, and then hit Shift S and cursor to grid. And that'll just snap it immediately to the center so that I don't have to worry about it being slightly off kilter. Then I'll just hit select everything, go S to 0, and W, remove doubles. And so the reason I did that is now I'm able to add in another loop like that very easily. So let's go ahead and add in, say, maybe 4 edge loops here. And this first one, we'll alt-right click on it, pull it down, scale and Shift Z, pull it up, take this down a little bit, S and Shift Z, take it in, and then maybe we'll add in another loop right there, Control R, scale it up a little bit, and then S, Shift Z, scale that in. Maybe add another one right here, and another one right there. And so really what we're doing is adding in that extra little bit of detail. So you can see on the stem here, we have this little nodule, which maybe we'll go ahead and just select these, hit W and smooth to make a little more variety in there. Let's go ahead and take these areas back towards the center. Maybe this one as well. So it's not uniform, and we'll make this less and less uniform as we go along. Here in a second, we'll go ahead and apply our mirror modifier so we can actually do a little bit twisting in here and really get the shape down. Let's go ahead and we'll add in another edge loop right here. We're going to scale up, and then looking at our stem, I'm going to add in a little bit of extra bulge. So I'll add in another loop right there, scale it down, take this down, scale this out. Continuing to go back and forth between the stem and our model. Look at this area here. Let's maybe smooth these out a lot, so we'll hit W. Or actually, before we do anything, let's just go ahead and apply our mirror modifier. We really don't need it anymore. So we'll click apply, because now we're just working with the variation. So we'll select this, we're gonna hit W, and smooth this a good few times. We'll smooth this one a good few times. And let's go ahead and take both of these up. Maybe smooth this one just a little bit. Okay, and currently the stem area is way too small, so let's select this. I'm going to select that one as well, and then Shift-Alt, right-click on this loop twice to deselect it. And then let's just scaling from the individual center by hitting comma. We'll just go ahead and scale this up. About like that. That looks good. Let's go ahead and take this loop in and up. So we see that there's a pretty clear seam right there. Take this one up as well. That looks pretty good. Let's add in some more variation here. So first I'll turn on my proportional editing. We're going to switch this back over to a smooth curve, and we'll just scale the influence down a little bit. Take some areas up, some areas down, so I'm just scaling them around. Let's maybe select these. We'll hit R and Z, just rotate around the Z axis, which then we can just add in a little bit of twist in here. Maybe rotate it just a little bit, pull it over. Select these, pull them over here. Just adding in more variation. Turn off my proportional editing. We'll select this, move it over a little bit. There we go. Now, it's really not necessary to have this many loops, which if you want to remove some of them, we can go ahead and just select this. We'll hit V to separate it. Move it down along the Z axis, so now the stem and the apple are separate portions. So let's maybe just select some of the every other loops in here. But if we do that, we need to delete or deselect the center vertex. So we'll deselect that by shift right clicking, X, delete the edge loop. Do the same thing with these. Very, very quick process just to simplify that down a little bit. But, you know, we really don't lose any of the detail in our model. Stays nice and sharp. Let's go ahead and grab some of these areas, which we'll then pull up, pull that down. There we go. Just add the extra little bit of variety. Let's go ahead and do the bottom of the apple here. So let's hit Control-7 to go to the bottom. And then what I want to do is I'm going to Alt-right click to select this. I'm going to hit Control-Alt. Nope. Let's see, what is it? It's two spheres. Control-Shift-Alt-S. And this is a very cool feature that allows you to basically conform any object to a sphere, which in the case of just a single loop selected like this, allows you to make it more circular. So you hit Alt-S, to sphere, and then just type in, say, maybe 0.8, and that'll make it much more circular than it was before. Maybe also go ahead and just smooth this a few times. Let's also add in a little more variety here by just twisting this, so that way it's not growing just straight. There we go, that helps. I'm going to go in and just under my display category, just go and turn off the grid floor. I just find it distracting. Okay, we're almost done here, but let's go ahead and look at the bottom. And what we want to do is create this effect in here. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to just work on one area at a time. I'm going to select this portion right here, just 4 vertices, hit E to extrude from the side view, actually front view. I'm going to take this up, E to extrude, take it down, scale it down, and then just one last time, do that. And if we look at this, you know, maybe we want to go ahead and bring it right into the center. And then what I'll do is I'm going to Alt-right click and Alt-Shift-right click to select all these. I'm going to hit Shift-C to make sure my cursor is centered. And then from the top view, I'm just going to go ahead and hit Shift-D, R, Z, and gotta hit period first, R, Z, 90. And then I'm just going to do this. Actually, you know what? Let's not do that. That's actually going to take an obnoxious long time. So instead, let's just do this manually like this. And if we look at our reference, you can see that there's pretty much like 4 or 5, 6 of these. And we'll go and extrude, take it in. From the side view then, and grab these, pull them way in. And we'll do the next one. And one last time. And then what I want to do is I'm going to Alt-right click to select this edge here, and I want to select all of the perimeter edges here. And we're going to hit E to extrude, and then Alt-S to just take it in a little bit. Maybe we'll just scale it in. Oh, and I missed a vertex. E to extrude, take it in, just add that little bit of thickness. And we're almost done. So I'm then just going to maybe select each one of these, hit O, and then scale it down like this. And actually that's maybe way too small. We'll just leave it about like that. And then there tends to be a little bit almost like a sphere effect down here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to separate all of these out. And the reason being is in order to make this easy to texture, I kind of want to just, well, let's see. No, instead, let's just go ahead and close these off. So we'll just hit O, select proportional editing, move some of these over. So we're almost done. Just going to go ahead and just move a few more of these, just kind of fine-tuning it. And then what I'll do to finish off the effect is I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift-C, and that, well actually, I'm going to then position my cursor right about here, Shift-S, cursor to grid, and then from the top view, or from the bottom view, so Control-7, I'm going to hit Shift-A and add in a circle. On this circle, I'm going to hit F6, and whoops, I added in a cube, Shift-A, add circle, F6, and I'm just going to change this over to 4 vertices, which you may be thinking, well, that's just a plane, which is true, but with my subsurf modifier on, it'll be sufficient. And the reason that I did it like that, rather than just doing a normal plane, is that with a normal plane, if you just select it and extrude out, and you will go ahead and create layered faces. So I would have these forms extruded in, but these 4 would still make a full face like that. And so by doing it this way, I can just take this right in like this without having to worry about that. Which I suppose, you know, there's arguments for both sides, because either way, there's the extra step. Either the extra step of changing the number of vertices down to 4, or the extra step of removing the extra faces. So it's kind of up to you, but that's the way that I like to do it. And so all I've done is then just shade smooth, and just basically closed off that form without leaving it attached. And so it just makes it a little easier to control that, because this will basically just be kind of a woody texture back in there, and it just keeps it from being completely transparent. Maybe I'll scale that up a bit more like that. There we go. So now, that's pretty much it for modeling the apple. If you want to adjust the shape easily of your apple, you can do this very easily by hitting Shift-C and then Shift-A to add in a lattice. On this lattice, you can first go ahead and hit Tab to go into edit mode. Or actually, no, you want to just scale it up and move it up just a little bit. And then from the lattice control panel here, you can change the resolution or the number of subdivisions along each axis such that you can go ahead and then control all of this. So if we now add in a lattice modifier to this mesh, like this, and then choose the lattice, you can very easily just go in and modify the shape of this with relative ease. So where this really comes in handy is, if you wanted to create a whole bunch of these apples, say, we'll just duplicate this over, then rather than having to go in and modify the actual mesh, you can just modify the lattice to change the shape of the apple and make people think that you actually have a whole bunch of them, when in fact you only have one. And really the real advantage to this comes in with the texturing process. By being able to use the exact same UV maps for each stage of your model, you can then very easily texture the different ones rather than having to do different UV maps for each one. So here we go. So maybe this one's kind of a Gala or a Fuji, this is a Red Delicious, and perhaps a Jonathan or even a Missouri Pippin, which are both kind of short and squat. So there we go. That's creating an apple. I'm just going to go ahead and remove these because I don't want them right now. So last stage in this process is just for appearance. Let's go ahead and, well, I was going to say let's go ahead and create a very simple rendering scene, but I'm not going to do that yet because I want to save it for the next process, which we're going to be doing texturing and lighting. So we'll go ahead and call this quits right now and follow this up shortly with a second part in the series, which will look into actually texturing the apple with a nice realistic texture.